Hey folks, Joe Valley here. Thanks again for joining us on the Quiet Light podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by, I'm going to talk about the book. It's the Exitpreneurs Playbook. Thank you everybody for your support. We launched a week and a half ago. We tripled the number of reviews that we were shooting for and the number of sales. And the more folks that can talk about it and do reviews of the book, the more people we can help. I wrote it for you, the entrepreneur that is out there slinging it and doing everything they can to build their SaaS content or e-commerce business. Secretly, though, it's great for buyers as well. I didn't expect it to be so good for buyers, but the feedback I've gotten is that, they're learning things that they never realized that they should be looking at when they're buying a business. So it's great for both. Thanks for helping get the Exitpreneurs Playbook off the ground. Now, today's guest is somebody, we were just talking about it prior to hitting the record button, when the last time he was on. I feel like it was yesterday, but we're both so busy and business is growing so fast. It's actually been almost 2 years since he's been on. He runs a business that at the time was just amazing. It was like perfect for everybody in the audience. And today it's even more perfect for everybody in the audience. Zack Leonard from Gembah. Welcome again to the Quiet Light podcast.
Joe, thanks for having me. It's crazy to reflect on how long it's been since we last even saw each other in person or over Zoom or something. But always a big fan of yours. Congrats on the book, and very excited to be here and just talk shop with you.
Likewise. So, as I said beforehand, I often these days am preparing a full fancy introduction. I think the world of you and what you're doing. The first time we met, you remind me, I don't know if I ever told you, you remind me of my my college roommate / best friend that I've known for, 34 years now. So I feel like I had a connection with you, and then it turns out that we are very similar in many ways. You're running a company that is, I think, necessary, right? People ask me why I wrote the book. I said, because it had to be written. I think you started this company because it had to be there to help the folks in the e-commerce world. Can you just give a summary of what you do at Gembah and who you're serving, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure. I think the high level is humans are innately creative, right? And they're the only species we know of on the planet that can actually go out and create. And so what Gembah does is help really enable that creative spirit at the end of the day. That's the high level. Now, if you're talking like tactically what we do, we help businesses, entrepreneurs, small, mid-sized, whatever, create and manufacture products. And we do that with a team of designers and engineers that is, open source network that we find at places like Under Armour, Weber Grills, and at Boeing, and help them create the collateral that you need to go have intelligent and professional conversations with factories about creating these products. And then you go into the other side of the business, which is the manufacturing side, where we connect you with factories in 8 different countries, trying to get competitive bids, ultimately to get your product out in the wild. And so you can't really have one without the other. I think that's the big part of what we bring to the table, is that we're taking the end and starting there and saying, okay, you want to launch this product or you want to resource this product. Where does it start? How do we do that? We have to look at the design first. Is there something from the design perspective that we can add more value to the customer experience? If it's something that's already out there in the wild, or if it's something completely new, you have to look at, well, what the competition is doing. Can you make the enhancements that you want to a product or create something that's never been made before for a price that someone will actually buy? There's a lot of research that goes into that. There's a lot of feasibility studies that go into that. There's a lot of then collaboration that goes into it, but it's ultimately on the trajectory of trying to get a product out in the market or trying to figure out the next best version of your product. So that's what we do.
And who are you doing it for? Who's the typical Gembah client?
Yeah, we have a few different customer personas, if you will. We have entrepreneurs that want to just have a passion for a product or an idea that they want to pursue that helps solve a problem. We work with small to mid-sized businesses that maybe have a hero SKU and they want to create the next SKU, or they want to re-engineer their existing SKU to be more they get all that feedback from the customers through reviews and everything, and they start to analyze and say, okay, what do I need to change to make this better? They come to us to help them with that, or they want to create an ancillary SKU that can be complementary to the existing SKU that they have. it could be a scaling SMB that, I have problems with my supply chain and I want to go find a better solution, whether that's pricing, whether that's finding a de-risking China or de-risking Vietnam, wherever their production currently is, finding more producers over there. And then also a bunch of, we have Amazon FBA aggregators and sellers that come to us to help try and quick turn all those things I just talked about. So that, with Amazon specifically, it's a very, very fast business. Things change every single day. And so for them to react, they need to have a partner or a team in-house that can actually do those things for them. And so that's who we help, along their path and their journey of creating products and getting them out in the market.
You mentioned hero SKU in there. I'm going to define it for those in the audience because I think this is a really, really important thing for those that have just bought a business with a hero SKU or those that are running a business with a hero SKU. So a hero SKU is defined as a SKU, a customer, whatever it might be that is generating the majority of your revenue. And that is a riskier proposition because things go wrong. Right? You have competition come in, supply chains break, whatever the issue might be. If you're relying on that one hero SKU or that one hero customer, your business is riskier and therefore your value is lower, right? Because buyers are looking at it going, there's a lot of risk there. I'm not going to pay as high of a multiple because it is a riskier proposition. And then they'd come to you, Zach, and say, okay, look, I've got this hero SKU. How do I get upsells for it? How do I create sister products for it? And go through that whole process. I know personally, back when I was manufacturing products and doing it over in China, it was a royal pain in the butt, right? It was really, really hard to get pricing and send materials and all this different stuff. I was just skimming your website and it looked like you had relationships with 500 different manufacturing companies. Is that right? Am I reading that wrong?
I think that might be outdated at this point. We've expanded quite a bit. We have
500 is not an impressive enough number for you.
I don't know. Don't stroke the ego too hard here, Joe. But no, I mean, I think the goal is that as we continue to add different products and different categories that we can facilitate, that we're always trying to find the best partner for that specific business at the given time. So, are you just starting out? Are you looking for lower MOQs? Then you probably have to go to, lower tier factory. Are you bringing in millions of dollars in business, right? That's a tier 2, tier 1 type factory. It's a very different conversation, different expectation. You go into with those different factories. And so, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think what you're talking about is exactly right. Like there's a hero SKU, and what customers come to us to help do is say like, okay, where's the risk involved? Is it patented already? Maybe that can de-risk it a little bit. But if you want to create something that is defensible, that's where we can help the most.
In terms of de-risking and manufacturing, it never really seemed to be a big issue that you had, one primary manufacturer. Those relationships transfer, that manufacturer's in business to, develop and produce your products. But in today's world, after COVID, we've got supply chain issues and, problems where people cannot get enough inventory to sell their wares. With that going on, is it a service that you're providing and helping people get, a second or third option that can produce the same product so that you are de-risking in terms of the supply chain?
Absolutely. We spun up operations over the past 2 years, since we last chatted, and we were primarily in China when we talked. We have India, Vietnam, Mexico, a few other places in South America like Colombia.
Is there? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there one country that is more up and coming that you're saying, okay, these guys are doing a great job? There's a benefit to going to Venezuela versus China, or is it still China's the best choice?
I think right now it depends on where you're at in your business. If you're just starting out, it's still going to be China. If you are able to de-risk and send a good amount of volume to another place, I think India is a really good option. Vietnam is also a great option, but it also depends on the type of product. Electronics, you're still looking at Taiwan or China. Cut and sew type of items, those can be, outsourced probably to, India, Vietnam. They're starting to get into plastics. But again, it's about finding the best partner for you. Regardless of like if you're up and coming or whatever it is, your business needs to be able to survive whatever happens in the supply chain. So if you start to see logistics prices go up 5x, do you want to start looking at Mexico and seeing, if that's viable for your business? Do you want to looking in the United States, even if that's viable, right?
Right.
And that's the environment we're in right now. And then couple that with the increased competition that's been coming in. The amount of, I think since we last talked, the amount of $1 million Amazon sellers has doubled. So it went from like 30,000 to 60,000 over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
The amount of people who started a business over the last year with COVID, I think, has increased significantly. So the competition is getting more challenging on top of this supply chain issue that's going on. So right now, I think is a perfect time for a company to really decide, what do they want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? And as you preach, like, what is your exit strategy? Do you want to stay and keep this a lifestyle business? Do you want to sell this off to one of those larger players? Well, what's going to get you there the fastest? Is it that hero SKU? Is it diversifying your supply chain, or is it just continuing what you're doing? And that's kind of the decision as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, that you probably want to think through in the next 6 to 12 months while we have this crazy supply chain thing going on that may not end for, the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yeah. At first it was the trade war with China. Now supply chain issues. Something else will come up next. I've had Mike Jackness on the podcast a lot. He's a great guy. He's one of the good humans, host of Ecom Crew podcast. And, he says that generally speaking, entrepreneurs are just trying to keep the wheels on the bus. They don't have enough time to think about, their eventual exit and all these different things. But he says, as this industry matures and as that individual entrepreneur matures, they start to really hone in on things like supply chain. How can I save $1 a unit, whether it's in the manufacturing or the shipping or whatever it might be? Because then they translate that into, well, I sell 5,000 units a month. That's $5,000 times 12. That's $60,000. My business is worth how much, Joe? 3.5. Wow. Okay. That just added $200,000 to the list price of the business. All of those little details and all that work and all that minutia has to be paid attention to. And I think people are getting smarter about it because of services like yours. They used to just, look at top line revenue and brag about that because that was good for their ego. But the bottom line profits and working with a company like Gembah to diversify, de-risk, reduce their overhead, and still grow their product line is where the mature online entrepreneur is going, in my view. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there as far as the mindset that needs to happen as as an entrepreneur, as you try and get through this, craziness that is. Like, you have to have the end goal in mind in order for you to understand where you need to go to get there, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, top line revenue is a vanity metric at this point. Bottom line is what your valuation is going to be determined on. So every penny, every dollar actually does count, especially when you get into the larger volumes. That's how people value your business. And so, taking a look at what we do and kind of translating that into this conversation, it's more about how do you get that bottom line larger, right? Is it on the cost side? Is it de-risking the cost? Or is it adding on the revenue? Is it adding a new SKU? Is it complementary SKUs that can be packaged together with your existing SKUs, right? They're bundling opportunities. Can you start on the logistics side? Like, can you start bundling those things in one container, right? There's all these different things, which I think is what makes what I like to do so much, is just solve the puzzle of all these different challenges that happen from the product businesses, right? Like, everyone comes at you with a different angle of what they want to do and what their goal is. Then you get to translate and say, well, if I can help you on, this side of the business, whether it's logistics or de-risking the supply chain or creating a new product, that's going to make your success path much larger at the end of the day. And that's what I love. So
yeah. And it's great that you love it, because if it was me, I would not love it. So I would absolutely, if I was in the e-commerce world, selling physical products again, I would definitely use your services because I'm good at other things. And that's what I think the entrepreneur has to figure out is what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? And if they don't love that stuff, it's such a critical part of their business and what they need in order to grow. And just one little change can make a huge difference. We just sold something for, $5.5 million or so. and the person had bought the business, and all she did was improve the supply chain, made sure she didn't run out of inventory, and got a little bit of better deal on cost of goods sold. And she bought it for, a fifth of the price that she sold it for.
Right.
So turned around and sold it in 24 months, and, a life-changing number, because she was good at that part of it. I wouldn't be good at that part of it. So anybody that, I had somebody, I was on a podcast yesterday, and we talked about, one of the most important things that an entrepreneur needs to hone in on is what are their true strengths and what are their true weaknesses, and making sure they don't promote themselves to their own level of incompetence. And I think what you do and the level of details that is involved is such a necessary service for a lot of folks. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's, conceptually walk me through this process. I have a hero SKU or three of them that are balanced. Okay, yeah. What do I do? I have a concept. I have an idea. I'm terrible at drawing. I don't have a CAD machine. Yeah. What do I do? What do you do? How do you help me?
Yeah. So I'll talk you through kind of the journey, and then I can start plugging in where Gembah can help. So let's just say that you have a hero SKU, and you're like, I have an idea to complement that. Let's say you're selling a water bottle, and you're like, well, no, I want to go sell an ice maker, because you need an ice maker for water, right? You want to keep it cold. Great. So if you don't have the competence in-house to do that, you have two options. You can go hire someone either internally or externally, or you can try it yourself. If you don't have the competence, you probably shouldn't try it yourself. You should go hire externally. So once you have made that decision, if you want to go hire externally, there are a vast variety of options that are out there. You can go to a design firm. You can hire, a team yourself or the people yourself. You can go on Upwork. If you came to Gembah, what you would do is you'd go through an experience where we try and understand what you're trying to make, do some sort of, get the team that's assembled to create the product. So if it's an ice maker, let's say that it's electronic. At the bare minimum, you need an industrial designer, mechanical engineer, and electrical engineer on that product, on that project, and a project manager. So we assemble that team for you. We find the folks that have worked on similar products like that. So let's say that they've made, ice makers and vending machines before, whatever it is. We put that team in front of you, and then you'd be off on your way through the journey of the creation process. If you were doing it on your own, you hired someone else, whatever, that's great. They would take you through the design process, and they'd say, here's your design. Now go talk to a factory. If you work with Gembah, what we do is we get the factory involved much earlier on in the conversation and go through what we call design for manufacturing phase, the DFM phase. That phase is specifically meant to get feedback from the factory. So you're involved with them much earlier on in the process, so that they can start telling you what can and can't be done in mass manufacturing. So you're saving tons of time and tons of money to go through that process. And it's not unique to Gembah by any means, but we do it every single time if we go through this process. So we take the factory search out of the equation, because we already talked to the factories that want to go through this process with you. Then when you get to the final, hey, the design's ready to go, that factory's already started thinking about, okay, I'm excited about this. I can price it much more effectively. You cut down what we call the discovery time much quicker. If you didn't go with Gembah, you'd have to go on Alibaba or find a guy or sourcing agent or use some outlet to go find a factory, go to China, whatever it is, to verify them, get the audit reports. We take all that off the table, obviously going through our service. And then when you get into the sampling process, we do a bunch of QC work. You'd have to hire that out externally if you don't want to do that through us. And then if you get into mass production, again, same thing. You'd have to do QC. You'd have to handle all logistics, like all that stuff you'd have to do on your own, find a freight forwarder. I mean, the game.
I do.
We just take all that stuff. You take all that stuff off the table.
PTSD from the last time I did it, and I had to do it all on my own. So, and I'm thinking, and honestly, Zach, I'm thinking to myself, the last product that I did, my wife designed it after we had a baby, right? You just had a baby, and there's, challenges.
Tons of ideas that come out of that experience.
Tons of ideas, right? And we had one and created a product and built a brand and sold it. Right. But it was such a challenge to do all the things that you're talking about, because we did it on our own. And it was so hard to communicate with the manufacturers because the language barrier, the process, the design, the materials, and good Lord, where were you back in, 2010? That's what I want to know.
I was in college. I'm sorry. Wasn't smart enough yet. But no, I think you actually hit on a really good point, because our philosophy is that we bring you closer to the factory. So a lot of sourcing agents or whatever out there, their goal is to be the layer in between you and the factory. And our goal is completely the opposite. We want you to be the one calling the shots and use our expertise to get you the results that you want, right? So we actually have people in those countries that are going to the factory, getting you photos and videos, basically being your eyes and ears on the ground through that entire experience that I just talked about. Wow. So it's not just doing it from afar remotely, it's sending someone to the factory. And if you look at all the big product companies out there, they either own the factories with their own employees in there, or they're having someone in there all the time. And the big thing that people, once you get through that first iteration of the product, it goes beyond that with us. Then you have to start understanding the next phase of production, which is how do I lower the amount of waste, and how do I better engineer my product for the next iteration that comes out? That's ultimately what a lot of the factories buffer in is a 5% understanding of the cost of goods sold, specifically on waste, right? So they get a bunch of products in from different suppliers, and then they go and say, okay, I can make this, but I expect that there's some amount of waste of the raw material that I'm going to use for whatever the dimension of the product is or whatever. If we send a production engineer in there every single month and just sit there and watch them look at the production line and understand how we can get that waste down, then their cost of goods sold goes down, which means your cost of goods sold goes down. And so it doesn't just stop at launch, it continues through what we call production management. And I think that's a big thing that people miss on a regular basis, especially if you white label a product. You don't know what the waste is on that. You aren't sending someone to the factory to understand that. That's what we do. And since we've created the product from the beginning, we can help get that hurdle crossed even faster by sending a production engineer in there on a regular basis.
Can you take an existing product that is designed in that hero SKU and find a way to eliminate some of that waste?
Absolutely. There's other things like also making it more packaging ready, right? So if you have a big bulky product or even a small product, and you say, well, if I had a hinge here or something that can make it collapsible, then you save on packaging costs, which again, if you're selling on Amazon or if you're selling in retail, that's what people look at. They look at how much is it going to cost me to store this good on my shelf or in my warehouse. So those are, we've seen products that we put out that came to us for that example, and we've saved them 25% of their cost of goods sold as a result of that.
Oh, that's a big number. That's a big number, especially with volume. Talk to me about timing. Let's reverse engineer a path to actually getting that new SKU or new iteration of that upsell listed and being sold on your store on Amazon. Let's back that up. Let's say that my objective is to have it in the warehouses, ready to ship to customers October 1st. When do I need to back up and start working with Gembah? I know it's not October 1st, 2021. That's not going to happen. I know that's already too late just for shipping purposes. Yeah. What's the process time-wise?
I mean, if supply chain wasn't so crazy, there's a couple of things at play here. One is obviously the supply chain issues that are going on. The second thing is what type of product it is, right? If you have a cut and sew product with no electronics, no injection molds, like you don't have that ramp of bill of material spend on the electronic side. You don't have that mold cost to go into the plastic or metal or glass, right? So that's going to really impact the timeline it takes for you to get up and running. If it's cut and sew product, I mean, again, the design phase should take, from our perspective, a couple months to get through that. And then it's really going to come down to how many iterations of samples do you want to go through. Each sampling process should take, 30 to 45 days if you DHL and ship it pretty efficiently. So I would say the design process for cut and sew, a couple months, finding the right factory, 1 to 2 months. Again, some people can go faster. You could go on Alibaba and try that if you want a really fast response. Our goal is to put you in touch with the factory that's going to be a long-term partner. It's not just one iteration and then, have a problem on the second iteration of it. But anyway, so that takes about a month and a half, 2 months to get that factory partner, get into the sampling process. Each sampling cycle takes about a month. So if you say it takes 2 sampling cycles to get it right, you're looking at, 4 to 6 months before you can start getting into logistics. And then logistics, it's like, okay, do you want it airship? That's 7 days. Do you want it to go through the ports? Well, right now they're crazy. So it could take another 2 months on top of that. So, I would budget 6 to 12 months for a cut and sew product. And if you add in injection molding, you're adding a mold, which adds 30 to 45 days, which adds, again, 7 to 13 months, whatever you want to call that. And then if you're adding electronics on top of that, don't go into automobile parts because the chips are backlogged for like a year or two. So again, it's just, you kind of playing this puzzle game with the different types of products. But I would say at the bare minimum, you should budget 6 to 9 months and then iterate from there based on the type of product it actually is. That's a good template, if I would tell you.
Yeah, it's something that you cannot turn around quickly, right? If you're buying a business, you got to plan on holding it for a while. You're not going to be able to buy it and sell it in a year without.
And that's something from scratch, right? I mean, if you're looking to just make a slight tweak on a product, that's a big difference, right? Because they already have potentially all the molds and tools, and that can go much faster, like more like 3 to 6 months. But if you're looking at creating something completely from scratch, it's going to require new molds, new tools, bill of materials that for electronics that you need to test, and debug and all that stuff. Like it's just a more complicated process.
Yeah. Sounds challenging, overwhelming, and something I would never want to do on my own. It's fascinating. I'm sitting here thinking about that last product that we did. And I'm like, what I would do in this situation, and maybe I'm speaking for the people that they have busy day jobs and they're doing a side hustle. My thought would be, if that was me, right? And I'm not launching a product, people. There's one I have sitting upstairs. It's a brilliant product, but I'm not doing that because I got a podcast, I got the book, I've got Quiet Light. But if I was, I would give the product to you, Zach, and say, find me, let's design this better. Let's design it cheaper. Let's get the manufacturing nailed. And then I would say, okay, Mr. Pope over at my Amazon guy, go ahead, run with it. Here's the budget. Let's get it up and running. And then, of course, I'd have to find somebody to help, on the Shopify side and do Facebook advertising. I'd probably go with impact marketing, right? There are some folks that bought a business from us and they do some great social media marketing stuff. So I feel like I know all the people to do it and do it well. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
Idea.
Yeah. I mean, that comes to the question of like, you have the ability, Zach, at this point in your career to build your own product and have your own brand or brands, growing and developing, or at least to the point where you can ship it to a fulfillment center. I don't know if you have the marketing side down, but you might have the relationships. Has it ever occurred to you? I know you're an entrepreneur building Gembah, and that's your joy and your happy cup right now. Has it ever occurred to you, I should just build my own brand as well? Or is it just not what you want to do and not where your focus is?
Yeah, just not today. I'm 100%, 120% focused on Gembah right now. And, we talked earlier, like you came up to me a couple of years ago, you're like, where do you want to go with this thing? Like, I want this to be big. So I think if we can continue to be and help entrepreneurs and the best new products get out there in the market, that's good for me. I'll be able to live vicariously through their success if that's how it works. But, I just like the people we work with. I like being at the forefront of technology. And I think just what we're doing is needed in the market. And so I'm laser focused on that.
Yeah. You built a company that was necessary, number one, and you used the word help in there, which is key, right? You really enjoy and are focused on helping entrepreneurs build better businesses and better brands and better pricing and better manufacturing relationships and, all of that. And the key word is help. And that's what you're doing, which I'll say this, I'll stop saying this. I might've said it too many times already, but I think the real secret to becoming successful in business is being laser focused on helping as many people as possible build a better business, build a better brand, and not putting yourself first, but putting them first and making their experience as strong as possible. The end result is it's going to build your business and you're both going to win in the end. And I think that's exactly what you're doing, Zach. I think I told you, all right, maybe I didn't say it out loud. I just thought you're nuts. Why would you want to take all this on when you first told me how big you wanted to get this? But you've got it down. You've got it down. You've got the processes down, the relationships, more than 500 manufacturing relationships, and building all of that's just amazing. Just the industrial designers alone that you need. You didn't mention the word industrial designers, but you mentioned people from Weber Grill and all these other folks that you've got to work for you, freelance or whatever they're doing, because they have the design skills. And then the mechanical engineers you're pulling in. It's pretty damn impressive. So congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, it's been crazy. Growing like crazy. It's been fun. And again, we've been able to work with some awesome people and make some awesome products. So it's a fun journey to be on.
Well, I'll personally say thank you for doing it, because there's a lot of people out there that are going to have better businesses because of you, and that's going to help them and eventually help the buyers of those businesses enjoy the kind of life they want to live as well. So thank you for taking the risk and building the business that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
How do people find out about Gembah? How can they reach you? What do they need to do to investigate and start the process of expanding their own product lines and brands?
Sure. The best way to do that would be to go to gembah.com, gembah.com. There's a form you can fill out. Someone from our team will be in touch with you pretty quickly after you fill that out and start the journey with you. And then from there, it's matching with the right people, the right manufacturers, and ultimately getting your product out in the wild.
Awesome. Zach, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it, Joe, and thank you.
You bet. We'll talk soon. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks so much for listening to the Quiet Life Podcast. As always, please like, subscribe, share, do whatever you can to help promote the Quiet Life Podcast. And go out and buy the Exitpreneurs Playbook. Share it. Tell your friends about it. Post something in social media. Post it in your mastermind group. I wrote it for you. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, I wrote it for you. It's everything that we talk about at Quiet Life, everything we've learned over the last decade, the information that is in our head that we've regurgitated over and over and over in one-on-one conversations is now there in black and white in 238 pages, I think, in a very readable, digestible, absorbable way, and hopefully is going to be the ultimate reference guide to selling your online business. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week.